Social. A hand draws a backyard pool and house. 3 people are enjoying a party and 2 more enter and comment on them.
The social model of disability is like a house party, thrown by disabled people for disabled people.
Ain't no party like a crip party, 'cause the crip party don't stop.
Nothing for us without us.
I was born like this. Don't even gotta try.
What is this?
They can dance? They seem happy.
We didn't have anything to do with this.
Still don't.
It's like they have their own culture.
That I'm not even a part of.
Still aren't.
Turns out our identities aren't about you.
And it turns out we're a fourth of the population.
Are they okay?
I don't know. Able's are weird.
The social model pushes the world towards inclusion, diversity of bodies, and built-in consideration of access requirements. It values the personhood of the individual and the communities in which we live. It shifts the focus away from the individual to the culture of disability. The social model is a movement towards an inclusive future that welcomes everyone.
You could join this party at any time if you stop being weird about it.
Bye.
Social. Jordan Carlos, right gray. Lynn Marie Rosenberg, left gray. Selena Luna, blue. Ryan J. Haddad, pink. Cara Reedy, purple. Matt Frazier, narrator. Lynn Marie Rosenberg, artwork and animation. Script and concept by Cara Reedy and Lynn Marie Rosenberg. Cara Reedy, producer. Jim Lebrecht, audio engineering. Rod Milam, video editor and visual description. Avi Amon, the score. Special thanks to Lawrence Carter Long, Susan Henderson, and Judy Human.
Hi, everyone. My name's Cara Reedy, and I'm the program manager at Disability Media Alliance Project. The video you just saw is something that we've been working on. It's called The Social Model of Disability. It's a little stop motion movie that explains about the culture of disability and how accessibility is really something that everyone should strive for, want, because when a world is accessible, it means that everyone is included. So I wanted to start that video because before I told my story, tonight you're going to hear a lot of stories from Black women, and mine's crosses intersections because I'm Black and I'm disabled. But I grew up in St. Louis, Missouri, in a little enclave called University City, which was this weird sort of hippie town in the middle of a very conservative St. Louis. Ferguson is not an aberration. It really is like that. But when I was really young, the only world I knew was University City, which was built by a sort of, I guess, you would call him a visionary, but he was also a little bit of a crook. But he started this town so that people of different socioeconomic statuses could live next door to each other. So the neighborhood was full of giant Victorian mansions next to little cottages. There were apartment buildings, and everybody sort of lived together. But as somewhere around this, I think mid-century, it became a very Jewish neighborhood. And then with sundown laws, and so the Black people that worked there had to leave before the sun went down. But somewhere in the 60s, late 50s, early 60s, the Jewish community decided that they needed to integrate the school. And so they started with one student, a Black woman. And as they opened the doors, then more and more Black people started coming to the neighborhood. And then by the time I showed up in the late 70s, it was already this sort of incubator for creativity. everywhere we went, there were artists. All of the parents were artists or scientists. We knew how to, all of the kids knew how to throw pots. We all knew how to sing and dance because there were cultural institutions just in this little neighborhood. And my preschool was called Child Grove, and it was attached to a larger school. It was super hippie. There was no playground equipment. They used to just give us the plastic milk carts and milk crates and say, go hang out on the hill. And we'd get in them and roll down the hill in them in the mud and whatever. And they didn't care. And they used to have big blocks. And when we were really little, we could make houses out of these giant blocks. But also we had a lot of freedom within the school. And I used to wander off to the older kids' schoolrooms. There were tree houses in every room, and I would climb up in the tree house and hang out. So this very free experience. And I'm a little person. I'm disabled. I've been disabled my whole life. I didn't really understand. I knew I was shorter, but I didn't understand stigma around that until much later, because this community that surrounded me didn't make a big deal about it. They just brought up, if I needed an accommodation, they just made it. Like, they were just like, okay, well, Cara's going to need this to go do this. And then they would just do it. And it was never really I didn't notice any blips in my life where I think a lot of other disabled kids, like, it's made a big deal of, and their parents have to fight for it. But in my little space full of scientists and doctors and creatives, it just wasn't a thing. So I went to public school, and it continued, and the kids were still great until there was a bully. But it was still better than where I ended up after that. My parents are Catholic, and I guess I'm Catholic too. And they sent me to Catholic school. And that's when I first realized that the world was not accommodating or nice or not racist, because my whole experience up until then, Black and white people, Asian people, just all hung out and we all shared. But when I got to Catholic school, I was like, oh, this is different. It's sort of like I experienced St. Louis on a different level. And I really had to start fighting. I don't mean physically fighting, but figuring out how to get out of situations, figuring out how to handle bullies and handle teachers that didn't really get it. And would tell me things like, oh, you can't do that. You're just too short to do that. There was no conversation about accommodations. And, I fought my way through it and embarrassed some teachers. But I will say this, growing up, the first section of my life, preschool through about third grade, was really the most formative time of my life. Because it opened my mind to creativity. Everyone I know was creative. And it helped me solve problems, because although they made accommodations, they also taught me how to make accommodations for myself. They taught me how to learn and how to speak for myself. And there was never any coddling, but there was always openness. And that foundation really, I think, has set me up to be who I am today. I'm creative because of those first few years. I understand how to problem solve because of those first few years. And I don't think that's something that every disabled person gets, but I'm very, very happy that I did.